Welcome to episode 3 of Authenticity FM. In today's episode, we're going to explore a few of the things we've seen online recently. You know, the idea that everything old becomes new again, and how disruption and historical cycles are at the intersection of everything right now. I'm Corri Spiegel, and I'm delighted to be joined by my friends Phil Corrali and Mike Sable.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
To kick off this episode, we're going to offer a little sneak peek into how we build our run of show. Because let's face it, we really don't know what we're actually doing. And so as we're building out today's episode, it started with a list of a lot of things. And then there's the group chat where Mike sends a screenshot of something from Adam Grant. Now, in true Gen X form, it's not like a full screenshot so I can tell where it came from or what date it's from or anything like that. It was good enough that Google Lens could help me find where it was from. And while we try to be kind of timely and thoughtful about what we're talking about, this one happened to be from 2024. Mr. Sable, do you remember what it said?
I don't, as a matter of fact. It says something like so I'll paraphrase it. It says, make something exist first, then make it good.
Very good. Yes,
Very close?
Very close.
Very close. Okay. So I wasn't really paying attention when I captured the screenshot and sent it to you. So that's also part of the bit is I thought it was interesting and I just forgot what it was.
Which sums up all of this because it gets bombarded and I try to organize it. And then one thing we were going to talk about, it's like, oh, we'll save that for later. Let's talk about this. So if you're here for episode 3 with us, we're working on the making it good later part right now. And so that goes with something else. Mike, big fan of Seth, right? His blog.
Yep.
And number 9 was on the July 10th blog post was there is no perfect moment to begin.
So I thought those two things were aligned. I thought they were pretty good because it was something that we talked about when we did this podcast is at some point you just have to start doing something. And that's why we did a cold launch. That's why we didn't talk about it. We just sort of did it so that I promise to the audience, we will get better every time we do one of these episodes. I hope.
I just want to say that it was out of my comfort zone to go into the just make it exist and it'll get good later part. I struggle with that. I'm sure other people do too. That shouldn't it be right the first time? Shouldn't you just know what you're doing and get there before you have to trip and fall your way through a series of mishaps and mistakes? And obviously, I would say as I grow in my professional life and particularly in my parenthood, I recognize that there's no such thing as good all the time. It's going to get there. You're getting that. You're working on it. You're trying for it. But that resonated with me when you sent that, Mike, because it's something that I think about a lot. It's, do we overanalyze and talk ourselves out of doing things that we should just try and see how it goes? And if it doesn't work, make it better.
And so on the tone of try and make it better, I'm going to attempt to share my screen now.
This is exciting. This is a first.
See, this is
for us.
Well, what's the worst that can happen, right? Here we go. All right.
There
New
we
York
go.
Times. Okay. So
Perfect.
And incredibly timely, I thought. So over the weekend, the New York Times published this article, who is watching all of these podcasts? Which we all kind of were like, well, that is a good question. And one of the things that I found fascinating, and I'll share, I watched the Kelseys, I watch Alex Cooper, there's several people in the music industry I watch. I watch so many random things. I don't watch TV, and we'll probably get to Colbert at some point, I'm guessing, in this episode, because he said something really fascinating this week. But look at how long some of these are. 2 hours, 5 hours. If we end up talking for 5 hours, we probably have some other problems.
Yes.
But I thought it was really fascinating that this came out on the same kind of time frame that we're doing this. And when Mike and I were talking earlier today, I was like, I don't think ever in my life I have been on the front side of a bell curve of something. And so here we are, which is super cool, I think.
So I would tell you what's really interesting as I read that article was that I am not somebody who watches podcasts. I listen to them because usually the time that I have for that kind of consumption is when I'm out running or I'm driving or whatever. And I'm among the 58%. 58% is the numbers cited in this article that is audio only or listening in the background, minimized on your screen while you're doing something else. But it really was fascinating to me as it talks about how this information is consumed. It's in many cases, it's very second or tertiary into whatever somebody's doing in their day. They're folding laundry or they are working, kind of doing more mundane tasks at the office. And this is on in the background and something triggers them. They hear something and they look at the screen and they watch it for a few minutes and then they step away from it again. It's fascinating because, growing up, that's not the way I watched TV, certainly. You sat until the commercial, then you ran to the bathroom and you ran back, right? But we're consuming things differently than we used to.
Yeah, as the youngest kid, it was always my responsibility to shout when the commercials were going to be ending so my siblings could come back in time. So that was one of my earliest tasks and earliest leadership roles was the commercial watcher. So thanks for that memory. Speaking of memories, Corri, I saw you sip something earlier and it made me laugh. What is this thing?
So as we were kind of preparing for this episode, oh, speaking of Saturday mornings, they were the best.
They were. Those were the days.
So, and everything old becoming new again. The Smurfs movie is out. And as we were talking about nostalgia and kind of historical cycles, I went into the treasure trove in my kitchen where I have some of my most precious possessions that my mom was smart enough, wise enough, pack ratty enough, whatever, to keep. And so this lovely Smurfs glass I researched is from Hardee's in 1982.
Solid.
Which is before I was in kindergarten, for fun facts. But as we were kind of talking through this, another one of Seth's quotes on his notes to myself from July 10th was, "Today's world is unpredictable. And this is as stable as it's ever going to get." So when we think about these podcasts or whatever, right? And we can dive into Colbert and Jon Stewart because the content they're creating right now is absolutely fantastic and fascinating. But the world's changing. So you talked about Saturday mornings as a farm kid. That was like the one moment where we actually got to sit and watch TV as kids. And I remember He-Man. I remember the Snorks. The Jetsons were my absolute favorite. I love the Flintstones. Obviously, the Smurfs were right up there. And so it's fun to see all this stuff come back around. And when we think about late night TV, for example, changing, and fundamentally changing, and I know I've talked to both of you this week about how this is all going to impact local government and the media. And we are living through, I think, some wild and crazy times because disruption's really hard. Change is hard. We as people like our patterns. I think I do, and I'm sure everyone else does too. But we are facing a brave new world. And so, if we think about the start of our careers, the newspapers at the time were a very prominent form of local media. And their primary funding source was help wanted ads and car sales. And so when's the last time you applied for a job through the newspaper? And so 20 years. It's not really that long in the grander scheme of things. And that era's gone. It's just gone. And so if we think about broadcast television and how this relates now to local government, local media in our markets. And you guys both work in bigger markets, so it's going to be a little different there. But in a mid-sized market or in much of rural America, what was traditionally the media is gone. Or if it's not gone, it will be soon. And so what's going to replace it? Because people are going to seek information. And that's where I think podcasts like ours and every other version that is out there are going to fill a role.
Well, Corri, you sent me a note this week, and it resonated as I read that New York Times article. There's a quote in the article, which I'll read, and it says, "I think podcasts could become the kind of the new basic cable television." When you think about that, it's fascinating because we're consuming information in a way that we never had before. We're consuming information much more cheaply. It's much more inexpensive to produce a podcast than a news broadcast or a television show. And what I think audiences are kind of pointing themselves toward is we're okay with that. We're fine with the content not being flashy and perfect and all of that, because frankly, we're not paying attention that closely anyway. We want to know what's going on. We're interested in hearing the voices or the thoughts or the ideas. But does that provide us in government an opportunity to get information into the hands of our residents? So when I started in my community almost 12 years ago, we had 2 print newspapers still. Now we sort of have one, but there's very little local content. And the other is kind of all online. And I'm not sure how many people pay attention to it. But what do people pay attention to? Nextdoor, Instagram, YouTube, those platforms that we don't control. We didn't control the news media either, but we have a lot more opportunity to impact the storytelling.
All right, so I talked about last week how I get overwhelmed with thoughts and I just start talking, and so Phil, you said a couple of things that I think really resonate with me, and one is you're right. So our local paper is gone. There isn't a local paper anymore, and there is sort of I'll tie maybe 2 things together. Number one is we know that there's been a decline in respect and admiration for institutions. We see people distrust of institutions, whether it's banking, whether it's government, whatever it is, there's always sort of this declining in trust in institutions. And so what people are searching for, I think, really at the end of the day, is an authentic voice. Like, you're right, the cost of doing this production between the 3 of us might have been $1,000. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But I mean, that is not a very high barrier to entry in terms of sharing what we know about, right? 60 plus years of local government management experience. Like, that's what we have with this group. That's pretty incredible and pretty cheap and inexpensive to do. And so I think I'll tie these together and say, right, the decline in trust in institutions requires people authentically to step up and say, well, I can contribute a little bit. And people will latch onto what's authentic. I think that's why you see the big podcasters, especially video podcasters, who get a lot of reach and a lot of audience are themselves. You can see that it's real, it's low budget, it's low quality in a lot of ways, but it is people with authentic voices talking. And I think that's why this platform has a lot of opportunity to connect with people who are looking for that sort of authenticity.
So let's pull on that thread a little bit. You both are city managers, active in kind of suburban major marketplaces, right? And government, and we've alluded to this, a little slow to innovate at times. But I view this as a tremendous opportunity to kind of leap forward. And I'm going to say by bounds, right? This isn't moving from step C to step D. I think you're moving from step D to like J. Mm-hmm. And instead of the traditional, we'll do these little incremental, we'll cut here and tape here and, throw a little WD-40 in for good measure. I think this is going to be a giant leap. And I'd said rhetorically, I think to both of you, I could look at your council agendas. I don't live there, but the technology gives me access to all the information I need to get started. And I could, as kind of a voice in government, somebody who knows enough to be dangerous, reach out to different stakeholders, do something exactly like this, start up a YouTube channel, and I could cover your community. And somebody's going to do that. And it doesn't matter if it's my hometown population 750 or a giant suburb. the barriers, as you mentioned, are negligible at this point. And so who's going to make that leap? Who in the community is going to take up that torch? And while government might traditionally be like, oh, well, it's just our job to publish the council meetings and the meeting minutes, I think there's way more opportunity than that. And I think in my own community right now, they're building 2 middle schools, beautiful middle schools. And can you imagine letting the creative arts students in the school district, under the guidance of leadership, develop an entire episode guide, podcast, whatever, about what it takes to build a $50 million middle school? And how cool that would be to hear the plumbers talk about plumbing and the electricians and the grading work and what weird things they found when they dug down and what it's like to build next to a school, right? There's 100 examples in each of your communities just like this. And so who's going to tell the story?
Well, in your example right there, I would also think that those kids would probably have drone technology. They'd be able to like zoom into the construction site. And so it would actually be sort of visually stunning. And I do think you're right. I mean, I know Phil does a video for his employees, and I still want to see the outtakes of said videos because I know that exists. But
I don't have any. Single takes every time.
But yeah, that opportunity, I think you're right. What you described would be super fascinating because people are curious about what goes on in their community, and this is a real way to do it almost in real time.
I think one of the things that we can't cede the opportunity to storytell to somebody else, right? So in the absence of our own storytelling, somebody else will fill that void. And generally, my sense is we're not going to be happy with the outcome. So one of the things that we focused on pretty heavily in my community has been some video, right? And yours truly is frequently the center of that. It's unique, right? There's not a lot of managers who want to do it. I wasn't crazy about the idea at first. But what's interesting, and I think what becomes important, is that how do we carry that forward to other members of our team who are incredible individuals, who have incredible stories to tell and are doing really impressive and really difficult work. And they're doing it on behalf of the people that they serve in their community. And it's a good story. It's a story people actually care about because you walk down the street and you're like, oh, hey, I wonder why they're tearing up the sidewalk. Wonder what's going on. Why would they do that? Oh, there's a video that I can find out about why they're doing that. Oh, that's what I'm watching anyway, because that's how I'm consuming all of my information. So how do we do that effectively? And I think it's something that a lot of governments are tiptoeing into. I've had the conversations with plenty of people who are like, you are nuts. Why are you on Instagram? And I'm like, because people actually come up to me in the street and they're like, you know what, that was really helpful information that you shared, and I didn't know anything about that, and now I told 14 of my friends all about it, and we shared the post around with our moms group. That's how good information gets out, not somebody else's version of information, and I think that's what we have the opportunity to do.
So I want to tie those together with something, Mike, you alluded to, and trust in institutions. So you and I are both big Neil Howe fans. Earlier this year, I read again, The Fourth Turning is Here. And so Neil Howe is a renowned generational researcher and author. And so in my notes, I can hear Phil's notes, but I'm going to cheat because mine are digital. Here's what I wrote.
You're so advanced.
Well,
I'm very analog. Look at
I also just didn't come from work.
Great.
So
Fair.
History cycles suggest that individual voices become especially influential during times of transition. When collective institutions falter, the drive for meaning, leadership, and innovation often comes from individuals and small networks. And so I think we can all agree we are at a tipping point, a turning point in history, whether it's education or local government or federal government or international trade. We are living through this state of disruption. And I think as we learn how to go from a collectivist kind of society into an individual one and find balance in that, Government has a lot of great opportunity to be innovative and lead the way, especially in how it engages, because I think we've been fairly reactive as a profession.
So I don't know how to add on to that conversation because you do good prep work, and so that was really thoughtful, and I agree, right? So you and I have read Strauss and Howe's book before and talked about it a little bit, and so for the listeners, it's like there's this sort of 80 to 100 year cycle that repeats itself, and we're in one of those periods of transition, and so and you're right, there is a ton of disruption, and I think everything that we see and feel this disruption. And I want to go back to your quote from Seth Godin, right? And I'm going to botch it a little bit, but it's sort of like, this is as stable as things are going to be right now, and they're only going to get more complicated. And that is actually true. So one of the things that it sort of requires is, I think, twofold. One, an understanding of the historic patterns, because, right, technology is always going to evolve to meet the moment, and so staying on top of what that technological shift is really important. But it's also then understanding the importance of relationships, because the only way that we're going to actually get through some of this transition is together, sharing what we know, sharing relationships, building connections and little networks. And I think that's, one of the things that we've talked about a lot, which is the three of us, is this a little network. And if we can invite two more people, then you can actually do something to drive change. But for the historical context and understanding patterns, and two, then the power of relationships to help get us through that, I think are really, if you read The Fourth Turning, it actually talks about how the generation that we were in and how we were raised actually positions us well to lead through the transition. And so that's my little bit of optimism and hope about, as complicated as it is, as daunting as it is going to be, we are going to come out the other side stronger and better as a result.
It makes me tired some days just generally, but no, it makes me tired some days to think about the scale of change that we have navigated in just really the last couple of decades, couple and a half. And I'll use an example. So as an intern, I was an intern working for the village of Skokie. It was an amazing place to learn. And one of my jobs was I had to write 10 press releases every week. And in the hopes that somebody would print one of those press releases, or it would lead to a story or something. And a lot of them probably just got tossed because they weren't that interesting, because, garbage collection is delayed one day this week is a press release, right? All the way to the way I create content for my own community now, where I'm walking down the street, I pop my phone on and I'm like, hey, office hours short, I'm going to tell you something about parking in the downtown. Let's have a conversation about that. So when you just think about it in a very simplistic term of how we share information, it's dramatically different. But that's the easy side. The other stuff, and this is what I'm seeing and navigating with my own organization, and what I'm seeing so many of my friends and colleagues navigating in their organizations, is the changing expectations, the loss of trust in what has always been historically the most trusted layer of government, right? Local government, what we represent. How do we continue to build that trust? How do we continue to tie back in as we change, as we adapt, as we evolve, keeping the humanity of what our focus is front and center, while also saying we can integrate technology in a way that can make our employees' lives a little bit easier, maybe make them more productive, maybe make it easier to do all of the base work that we have to do. Now, what else can we try to do, right? But getting there is really hard. It's not everybody wants to jump on that bandwagon. And I have found in my own circumstances where I have said, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to do this. And everybody looks at me around the conference room table and is like, do you have any idea how much work we have to do already? I can't even contemplate trying to integrate that new thing because I don't know how to do all of the other stuff that I have to do. The work keeps getting more, but we keep getting stuck in our old process that got us to the work that we're doing today, instead of taking a step back and saying, maybe that process isn't right. And maybe that's a good transition to another article that I sent to the group this morning. And it's actually a guest essay that was in the New York Times today. July 22nd is when we're recording this. And it talks a bit about how certain governments are actually making that transition and recognizing that maybe all of the ways that we thought we were doing it right were the wrong ways. And there's a line that I think is particularly that works really well toward this argument. Government feels like it's stuck in an earlier era because it often is, operating in a model that hasn't served us for decades. Our industrial age bureaucracies were slow to adapt to the internet era, and now they risk missing the boat again as the world hurtles into a new technological revolution. When we think about that, and we think about the work that we're doing and the time that our staff is putting toward mundane, menial tasks, why are we doing that, right? To what end? And how do we get ourselves out of that cycle?
So I think it's an interesting connection between kind of generational attributes. And we've talked about this in the context of several things in our own conversations recently. But saying the way I used to do it doesn't work anymore is a really hard thing. And maybe it evolves through generations, maybe it's through technology, but it's still really hard because when you work in government, there's this pride of ownership and the care for the community, and being able to step back and being like, just because I'm comfortable doing it the way I've done it for 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, doesn't mean it's the right way anymore. And I think we are about to, whether the change has been done in the right way, it's been done. And adaptability and innovation are going to be the opportunity. And so we can fight that we didn't like it or it wasn't right. And I'm not going to make any political statements beyond that. The how was not great. I will say that all day long. But maybe some of the what, it was time. And I think it's an open opportunity. And I know there are a couple communities profiled in the article, but it really is a strange moment, especially I would say in Midwestern communities and maybe rural communities where the transient nature isn't the same as it is in a lot of the big metro burbs, right? Where you have a lot of talent and it's just this constantly ebbing and flowing culture. When you have more traditional structures and more traditional communities, that change comes really hard. I remember being the one who canceled government TV. On the financial side, I saw the franchise fees going,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, that means nobody's watching cable anymore. And wow, there were 12 people who were really angry with me.
I just love that real world example, Corri. And I do, and I'm serious because we still broadcast our meetings on channel 16. But we have adopted sort of the methodology that we play all of our YouTube videos that we make and the clever things. We just run them on the cable show. So we've essentially we've used an old platform for new things. There's no data on how many people watch it. So it might be the same 16 or 12 people who actually watch it. But you're right. I mean, this evolution and shift in the way that we need to think is real. There's just so many real world examples. And I know that there's a lot of emphasis on sort of integrating technology and integrating software. And that's true. And some of it is also just integrating people and trying to understand what are we trying to actually do. Yes. And so that little going back to sort of first principles about how does this stuff actually work? That's why I go back to conversations about what do we value, because it is deeply rooted in people first.
Well, it's the simple one word question of why that I think is really hard to ask, because when you ask why, maybe it sounds like you're saying we've been doing it wrong, or all of this stuff that you've done or you've dedicated a career to, this group of people or this individual has been perhaps not really without point, right? And that's not actually, when you ask the question why, it's not why did we do it back then? It's why do we do it now, and why should we do it tomorrow? And I think that's that evolutionary perspective that we work with in our organizations, to try to get people to say, I collect that data. I'm very good at it. I have no idea what it's for. No one has ever told me, and it was the guy who I took over for who reminded me that I had to do it. So for 29 years, I have collected that data, and it's in a spreadsheet, and I hope somebody loves that. And you're like, man, I've never seen it before. I have no idea what you're talking about. And it's crushing to that person, right? So when we do that, how do we say, you know what, we want to put your efforts and resources towards something that is going to have stronger meaning and more impact to our community, because that's what you're here for. You want to make somebody's life better. So how do we use the tools that are available to us? How are we investing in technology? And it's not just buying the next software package from somebody, but actually integrating technology staff into our organizations in places perhaps that they had never been. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but we've been working with a consortium. Glencoe, the community I'm with right now, is a founding member of something called the GIS Consortium. And so back in 1999, when GIS was kind of this fledgling idea, us and 3 other communities created this, where we wanted to standardize how we collected data and how we built out GIS systems. There are now 46 communities that are part of it. They're branching off into other areas. And one of the ideas that the consortium is playing with is putting a business analyst into our operating departments to ask that why question. Why do it? Why is that important? And maybe the next question is, what else could we do that would be better, right? And how we work through that so that our communities are improved, right? We can't make the world a better place holistically, but we sure can do it at our local level.
So it's funny when you talk about GIS, I'm like, oh, life before Google Maps. Remember MapQuest and printing it out?
Oh, yeah.
But as you talk about adding on, right, which every employee through their career has been, there's always more. One of the questions I always find to be interesting when you're having like really meaningful conversations with members of your team or your organization is, what are you doing now that you don't think we should be doing anymore? Giving someone permission to say, this is dumb, is actually really, really empowering. And I don't think we do enough of it. And this is going to be one of those windows where, you know, Mike, you talked about why do we do something? I think that as technology rolls out, and we've dabbled around AI on the podcast and in our own professional lives using it, there's going to be so many really cool tools and really cool companies with a really great pitch. This is not the moment where everything new and shiny must be had. This is the moment where if your teams, your organizations aren't starting with why, what problem are we going to solve? Whose life are we going to make easier? What are we going to do better? Like, this isn't a solution to the problem. This is finding the right solution for the right problem. And that's the little bit of guidance I would offer to professionals navigating this world really over the next couple of years, is there are going to be so many really cool things. And your staff is going to, one person on your staff is going to be like, that's going to be the coolest thing ever. And then, much like the big enterprise systems, it's going to become a burden. And so if you don't start with why, what problem are we going to solve? I think it could go maybe not so smooth.
So I'm going to take all of that stuff and I'm going to add on something like this. And so one of the things that we I talk about I honestly, I've heard this goes back 13 years, so this is not new and this is not me, but in the HPO model, they talk about, um, in a traditional historic bureaucracy and hierarchy, the front line were the doers and the management were the thinkers. And that is totally reversed in a lot of ways, right? Management's job is to support and encourage the growth of the front line, and the front line is to innovate and change and think, and so, right. But nowhere in our job descriptions for our frontline maintenance worker do we talk about your job is to innovate your job. Yeah. But it ought to be. And HR directors who are all compliance focused are all going to say, well, if we put that in there, we're going to have to pay them more. Well, if they're delivering more, they deserve more. And so this is one of those old structures that needs to be sort of unbroken because it just doesn't fit a modern world. And so maybe I actually am thinking back to my own organization, sort of our job descriptions. I don't think I've done enough to modernize what those look like and set a higher level of expectation for thinking in a modern environment. So I now have a new task that I'll have to do tomorrow morning. But I think that's really insightful pieces, because you're right. The change that's going to come in our organization is often going to come from the frontline person who's just irritated and wants something to work better. So they just figure out a solution for it. And I think the more that we can empower people to do that and to leverage tools that are available, I think we're going to be better off. So, hey, perfect. I got something out of this podcast.
Well done, Mike. Well done. So much
Your own
growth.
homework.
So much growth. Well, I love that whole concept of what you're talking about from the standpoint of I've had conversations with frontline employees in the past who have said to me, what do you think we should do? And I've said, I don't know. What do you think we should do? You're the one who actually does it. I don't do it, right? I don't have the context. I don't have the awareness. I don't know what's difficult, complicated, easy, frustrating, pointless, but you do. And so use that information to advise your friends, your colleagues, your supervisors too, by the way, to tell them, this isn't working. Could we try something else? The hardest thing I have found has been kind of that relationship and encouraging the supervisor to not see that as some sort of a challenge to their ability or authority, right? When they have a line employee come up to them and say, hey, I feel like we could do this better if we did this. That can be a real frightening moment for some folks. And how do we create environments in our organizations? I will not say that we're good at this. This is not something that we are, that I would go and give a talk about how great we are at it. But it is something that we're aware of and we're working on, because that's how our organization is going to evolve and adapt into the future.
So I want to pick on a specific phrase you said. You said, I don't know. How hard is it, and think about it by layers of organization, to say with humility and confidence, I don't know? Because I think there's this perception of the higher up you go, the more you're supposed to know. And I think the more well-rounded you get professionally, the more comfortable you are saying, I don't know. But let's figure it out.
I say it a lot.
Awkward pause.
Look, here, the thing is, I have always found myself to never be the smartest person in a room, ever. And I find the opportunity to learn from anybody an exciting opportunity. I think it's easy for our employees and our team members and our communities to look at us and say, what are you here for if you can't come up with the answer? It's not really what I'm here for. I'm here to cultivate answer building so that I don't even get asked, because somebody else comes up with a good idea and a good thought, and they execute on it and they feel comfortable and confident with that. For me, that's not been difficult because, as I said, I've never been the smartest person in the room. But it's it can be very off-putting for an employee who's looking at you and saying, but you work in the corner office. Like that's how it's supposed to be, right? Right. You're supposed to tell me exactly what to do. And you're saying I should tell you? Well, yeah, I am, because you're going to help me help you.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant way to say it, right? Cultivate is such a great word, and I think it's sort of underutilized in organizations because that's ultimately what we're doing, right? We're doing sort of the work in the spring of, right, tilling the soil and adding some nutrients and preparing the garden bed for something that's going to be really great later on. And so letting people bloom I sort of is a great sort of vision and image. And the other thing is, if I'm always giving answers, I don't get to actually grow myself. I am constantly just sharing information, and I'm actually stifling growth. And so I don't want to do that in my organization because I'm not going to be there forever. And so when you can grow and cultivate, and I'll share a story. We've had 3 of our firefighters recently all get promoted outside of the organization, and at some level, it's sort of sad because they're great people and we have to replace them. And also, how great for them to go get a job that helps them grow. They're going to get better. Their families are going to get better. And so, and then we then get a reputation of a place where, hey, if you want to grow and be talented and get promoted somewhere else, come work for us. Like that actually becomes our job posting. Like come work with us. We'll help you be great. And whether it's with us or somewhere else. But I'm going to grab onto Cultivate today because I think that that's one of those inspirational moments that is one of our jobs.
I love the Midwestern farm vibe that the Cultivate, especially as like it's the heart of corn sweat season. And so if you're listening from the Midwest,
please tell us what corn sweats are.
It sounds so weird when you say it like that. Like I'm not wearing sweatpants made of corn.
No.
So we produce a lot of the corn for this country and beyond here in this part of the Midwest. And as cultivating happened in the spring, we are in the heat of summer and the peak of growth season. My mom had posted a picture. So growing up, it was knee high by the 4th of July. And it was eyeballs high this 4th of July. And so when you get all of that crop and summer, like I think the humidity index was 86% today, which is great when you can spend the afternoon in the pool. Not so great if you're out in the field working. So thanks for the corn sweat. So that was all a beautiful setup to our final topic. We are less than 100 days from ICMA, their annual conference, which this year is held in Tampa. And this is the first year where I've actually had to book my own travel, being a complete board alumni member now. And boy, do I miss the ICMA staff because they made it so easy. But Mike, this is your 3rd year as the Midwest rep, which means something very significant as we head into Tampa.
Well, yeah. So as I shared sort of earlier, you get to serve a 3-year term on the ICMA executive board. And we've converted now, so you do a virtual meeting. So I actually only have like 1.5 meetings left in my 3-year term. And I've been reflective of kind of the things that we've done on there. And Corri's right. So the ICMA conference is the sort of this culmination of the profession where we come and we gather. There's a couple of things about the conference that I love. Number one, Monday night is usually party night. And as people know, I'm generally outwardly social. So so it's all of our affiliate groups and all of the state associations have their party. And I sort of made it my pledge and my commitment that I was going to hit all of them in the same night. Last year, I successfully visited 17 parties in 4 hours and 30 minutes. You do the math. I was there for a hot minute, but I wanted to make sure that people knew that I was grateful and thankful that they were there, that they took time out of their lives to come grow as a professional. And so I came in like a whirlwind, and it's always a blur. But I always just say thank you to the people who are coming. And so they do make our profession that much better. So I may I haven't decided yet, but I may continue that tradition just because I love the camaraderie and the opportunity to see people. And the other thing about the conference that I'll talk about, and I think we'll probably preview that we're going to have, hopefully, if schedules allow, some guest speakers of people who are presenting at the conference, people who are going to be engaged in some of the work, so we can get a sneak preview and also draw some attention to it. But the other one is a Monday night, or actually, I take that back. It's going to be Monday during the day. I get to wear the little Britney Spears mic and get to be the MC for the conference. So for folks who are there, please come sit in the front row, throw things, heckle, tease, whatever. But it is sort of a culmination of the board service that you get to honor the people that are being awarded, and you get to see the keynote speakers. And so I'm really excited for this year's conference. I promise at some point I won't always wear Timberwolves stuff. I'll probably wear some ICMA stuff as we have special guests.
So do we get to help pick out your outfit? Because what some of our viewers know, many don't, is that you take the conference very seriously from a fashion perspective. And at some point, maybe we'll bust out some fun pictures about that. But I suspect your Amazon cart or whatever has like several options currently under consideration. So, maybe we could throw a poll out there for the bow tie or something.
I'm certainly
I love
open
that
to
idea.
it. I mean, I'm just going to say Phil is on point. He just obviously just came from work, right? He's got like a very light patterned shirt and a good stripe, sort of like it's like, I don't know, is it like plaid stripe? I don't even know how to describe.
It's a solid plaid. Yeah, it's a solid plaid.
But it's a solid look. I mean, Phil always looks great, especially in a work, right? So you're right. I do. I think the conference is a fun opportunity to sort of let out a little bit. I joke that the usual city manager attire in the summer conference is some sort of a khaki and some sort of a golf shirt. And I don't need to do that, right? This is a sort of a fun opportunity. So for folks who I'll come up with something good. And if Victor Cardenas from Novi, Michigan is out there, I need your help, please.
All right, Phil, you have of us the coolest role when it comes to the conference. So share.
So I am serving on the conference committee for my second year now in a row, and I'm excited I'll be doing that again next year. It is, first, before I start talking about the conference, I want to put out a pitch to anyone who has never volunteered for an ICMA committee. You need to raise your hand and do it. I spent a lot of time in my career volunteering for my state association. So I'm just coming off. I'm the immediate past president of ILCMA, the Illinois City County Management Association. Spent a lot of time at the state level, but it is so much fun to engage with our colleagues from around the world on these committees. And I have had such a blast these last 2 years working on and developing these conferences for the benefit of our members in ICMA. I will first just say, ICMA President Tanya Angie has talked since she took office about members matter, her kind of tagline, hashtag. That is what the conference is all about. It is the ultimate opportunity to learn. It's the ultimate opportunity to hear from people from every size and type of community, from nearly every part of the world, especially every part of the United States, who are talking about the important work that they are doing, and they are eager to help you do the same thing. So we have over 130 sessions during the course of the conference. The official conference really runs from Sunday through Wednesday morning, but there are sessions that begin as early as Friday and run through that weekend and all the way through. There are tours. There are sessions about virtually every topic in local government. It's the place to learn about the future of local government. And I would say this, it is also the place that you have the opportunity to build friendships outside of your comfort zone, outside of the place that you know best, right? That you work, and that you spend the most time, and to build those relationships, because it is so fulfilling to have the opportunity to do so. We have the keynote speakers have not been announced yet. That will be coming soon. Mike is not one of them, but he will be speaking. I have a session on Sunday, late morning. Corri, you and Mike are doing a session. I believe it's on Tuesday, right?
I think we're Monday morning.
Monday. I'm sorry, it's Monday. I should know. I have to introduce you guys at that session.
Yeah, we should say it's us three plus Victor Cardenas.
Well, I
who
am not
is-
actually doing anything. I'm there for the ride. You guys are doing
You're
all
a
the heavy lifting.
chaperone. Let's
Well,
not
somebody-
be confused.
Fair point. That's not an easy task. But ICMA, Tampa, it is a beautiful city. The conference center is compact and right in the center of tons of hotels. There are going to be amazing social activities. There's going to be amazing learning opportunities. You got to go. There's scholarships available. Go to ICMA's website, look it up. Registration is open. It's one of the best things that you can do for your professional learning and mental health in this profession. And before I stop talking, I do want to say couple things about Mike as he cycles off. As somebody who has represented me, my state, and this region, and Corri, you cycled off last year. You fall into that category as well. Most people in ICMA don't recognize the amount of work and time that the vice presidents put in terms of serving the association and serving the members. And it is a huge commitment. It is a incredibly rewarding one, I hope. I know it's not always easy. I know there's a lot. And Mike was one of those people who took it with both hands and ran when there was an issue. If I raised something, if somebody in Illinois, if somebody anywhere in the Midwest, if anywhere in the entire membership region raised something, Mike was there to listen. And I think it's worth underscoring the fact that Mike is not all that unique among our ICMA vice presidents. These are people who care deeply about the profession, care deeply about the association, and are committing themselves to working hard in its service. So I just want to thank you for that, and say that I'm not sure who I'll complain to when you cycle off the board, but I may still just complain to you. Why not?
Yeah, please do. I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to listen, and I really I appreciate those kind words. It has been, it was more work than I anticipated, and far more valuable and rewarding professionally than I anticipated. So I think multiple things can be true at the same time.
That's right.
The good news, Phil, is you get to complain to the other Corri from Iowa.
That's right. That's right.
So help the audience. Who are we talking about?
So Corri Burbach from Dubuque will be the incoming Midwestern VP representing our region. And she is truly extraordinary. So if we can give you some homework, and I suspect over the next 2 months, we're going to give you lots of conference homework as
For
we
sure.
have guests come in and join us on the podcast. But saying hi to Corri and giving her a warm welcome, especially if you're from the Midwest, but from anywhere in the organization. She truly is the epitome of service. Her career story is fascinating, starting as a fellow. And I am so excited for her to kind of take on our Midwestern legacy. And
I don't think people are going to have to find her to say hi. I think she's going to do it on her own. She's going to find you. She is amazing in her ability to connect with people. I have loved the conversations that I have had with her, and we are going to be very well represented, no doubt.
Absolutely.
So I have, for about 5 years now, served on the awards committee for ICMA, which is probably one of the coolest. It's super intense for like 2 months, and then the rest of the year it's just super fun. And so while Mike's on stage and kind of interspersed throughout the conference, you'll see these award nominations. And what I loved about the committee is you get to see all these like super cool creative things communities are doing. And when our world is filled with a lot of yuck in the news and maybe in what you're going through during the day, with different things in the organization, like being able to see and celebrate that stuff is also very, very cool. So we will continue to talk about the conference. We all have very good memories of it professionally, and it would not be abnormal for Mike or I to pull someone aside and be like, boy, do we have an idea for you. It's happened to a lot of people like Phil.
One or two. One or two ideas.
So we are under 100 days. We are absolutely looking forward to welcoming some of the presenters as guests here on the podcast. In case you can't tell, we all love the organization and what it means for the profession. And with that, we are going to wrap up the 3rd episode of Authenticity FM.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for watching, and we can't wait to do it again.